Afternoon. This is my task 7.1 of SIT232, and I am Sanit Agrawal, and my roll number is 2510999116. In this video, I'll explain how I have used the inheritance and polymorphism in my code. And in this code, I have made a banking system. So first, I'll show you the inheritance part. So for showing the inheritance part, first I'll go to the public abstract class transaction. In this, I have created an abstract class of the name transaction, which acts like a base class for all the types of transaction. Now, instead of repeating the same variables in every transaction, I have defined all the common fields here. In this class, I have initialized multiple fields like amount, executed, reverse, success, date, time. And here the amount stores the transaction amount. The executed is used for making sure that the transaction is not executed twice. Because if the transaction will execute more than once, it will create an error. The reverse field is making sure that the rollback doesn't happen multiple times. And the success field stores whether the transaction is worked or failed, like if it is failed or if it is worked. And the date stamp field. This stores the time when the transaction was executed or rollbacked. So basically, all the common data is centralized here without avoiding, which avoids duplication of the code. So this is my constructor of name transaction for that class. This constructor just sets the amount and all the child class pass the values using the base amount. Now the execute method this. In this method, I am checking if the transaction was already executed, and if it is, like if the transaction was executed, then I throw an exception, which is that transaction already executed using the throw new exception, or otherwise I'll mark it as the executed and store the current date time with the date stamp field. Now the rollback method. This also works in a similar way like execute. This checks if the transaction was executed and if the transaction was executed or not already reversed. Then updates the state and the timestamp of the transaction. Now, print method at last is used to print the details of the account like amount, success, and time. Now we will go to a deposit transaction class. Here we can see the actual type of inheritance by using the semicolon of the transaction class. Now, the deposit transaction class is inheriting from the transaction as it automatically gets all the fields and method which are used in a transaction, which I had shown above. Now, the override void execute. This overrides the execute method from the transaction class. Firstly, it will call the base.execute for running the common logic, which is shown above. And after this, it performs the actual deposit operation. Yes, this is a command for this. Now, this same type of concept is used in the withdraw transaction. This also inherits from the transaction class and then overriding the execute method, then base.execute, then everything. Rollback, withdraw, then print. This all overrides from the transaction class. Now for seeing the polymorphism, we'll go to the bank class here. Here I have created a list of type transaction. This is a list of type transaction. This list means that I can store the deposit, withdraw, and transfer objects all inside this the same list. Now the execute transaction method. Now this is the main part of the method. In this execute transaction, I have created a parameter, this small t, of the type transaction and not a specific type like deposit transaction. And this transaction dot execute method. When this method will call, the actual method that will run depends on the type of the object. So if I pass a deposit transaction object, its execute method will run. And if I pass the withdraw transaction, then its version will run, which I had shown previously in the previous class. Now, this is called the runtime polymorphism, where the decision happens while executing the program. As I have uses the runtime polymorphism, because of this, I don't need separate methods for deposit, withdraw, or transfer. Here, one single method can handle everything, which makes the code much cleaner and easy for understanding. Now, we'll see the advantages of inheritance. So, one of the biggest advantage of inheritance, which I have used here, will be that I did not need the did not need the writing of code again and again. So all the common logic is written once in the code in one of the class, which makes the system easier for managing and extend. Now the advantages of polymorphism which I have used here is that this makes the system more flexible, and one method can handle multiple types, and if I had to add new types of transactions in the coming code, or then I can add I can add them, and then again the code will work out without any more changes. So that's how the inheritance and polymorphism part is used in this code. So thank you